Hi, today we are going to see Android tutorial. First we'll see the features of Android. If you see, the features of Android are countless, but I'll list only few in this. First is a beautiful UI. You can develop a beautiful UI, and the next one is a connectivity that says like you can connect to Bluetooth, Wi-Fi and uh, other options like LTE and other latest connectivity protocol. Next is the storage. Is like Android will have a lightweight storage database which is called SQLite, and this is relational database and it will be used to store user information and have a database interaction. Next is the media support. Media support is like, if you can see, like it supports almost everything, all the medias. Next is the messaging, which has an SMS and MMS. User usually SMS and MMS recently, and the web browser. So these are the browser application that you can install in your Android application, and then you can browse through internet in your Android mobile. Multi-touch option is one features that Android devices provide, and multitasking as well, like you can have a different application running simultaneously. It contains resizable. We could say like you want to show some timepiece, you can just show it and then you can resize and move it around in your screen. Multi-language is like you can type in multi-language. It gives the support to type in any language, and bi-directional text as well, that language as well. GCM is a new concept like Google Cloud Messaging, which allows developer to send short message to the Android devices. Next is a Wi-Fi Direct, which is like you can pair two Wi-Fi devices and then have a peer-to-peer connection. Android Beam is like you just connect to mobile phones and then you just touch it and then you can share data between two Android devices. Next is like the target audience. So this tutorial is for people who knows how to use a smartphone, and then basic Java programming skills is required. Next is the installation and setup. First, go to this website and then you need to download Android Studio Bundle. Before that, make sure that you have latest JDK. Next one is like you need to, after download Android Studio, you need to make sure that you have all the SDK using the SDK manager inside the Android Studio. Next, connect your phone using the USB and then run the project, sample project that is available in Android Studio, and make sure that you don't have any issues with the driver. So you will be seeing something like ADB interface in your device manager, and that makes sure that you can just connect your USB to your Android device and deploy the application, debug everything you can do. Next is the architecture. First is the application, that layer that has all the applications. The second one is the application framework, where your application interacts with other managing and utilities like contacts, telephone, packaging, resources, locations, notifications, etc., etc. After that, the third layer is the libraries, which has OpenGL, Media, SQLite, other components for Android OS to function properly. It contains the Android runtime, which has the virtual machine in it. And the last layer is the Linux kernel, which has all the drivers for Android to work seemingly. So you all know that Android is developed from Linux only. Next, we'll see the components of Android. First, there are three components. four components, which is the activities. Activity is something like user interaction that you have in the screen, that is called activities. Service is like the background process that your application is having, that is service. The receiver is like the system communication between the OS and the system communication with the application. That's like the communication between OS and the application. The content provider is like you provide content to your application using the database and the data that is using SQLite. So other components that we have is like the fragments, which is like within an activity you have some portion which user interacts. Say for example, you want to open a contact page for your activity or for your application, that will be open in a separate page altogether. So that will be implemented as a fragment. A view is like some kind of UI element which is on screen for placement, button placement, and then other things. Say for example, you want to show a rectangle border around containing all the buttons, then you will use views. Layout is something like you need some kind of layout to arrange your buttons and other components for your application, like grid view, layout, and other things. Intent is something like you have the communication wiring between components. Say for example, from your application you want to open a camera or you want to dial a number. That in that case you will use intents. Resources are like something like you have some kind of strings, constants, and drawables. Everything will you store it in a resource strings. Manifest is something like the configuration file that you have for your application. It's just like a web.xml for your J2E application. So this is the anatomy of project that you have. First one is like you will see the sources where you have all the activities and all Java files listed here. Gen is the generated files which will have all the generated files for your resources. Bin is where your Android package runtime and other APKs will be there. And you have in resource folder you have drawable, layout folder, menu, values, and other things where you store all the resources. And Android manifest file will be here. The main activity. So this is a Java file. The first step is to extend an activity, and then that will implement all the methods related to that. Second is the layout file, which is having a file where you design your UI. See for example, this is the layout that you have, relative layout, and you have this component called text view added to this page. So here you can have the components with height, you can configure everything, and you will have the text that display in the text component. The manifest file will have the SDK version, application version, the application name, etc. And it contains all the filters like intents, services, receivers, and providers information here. The string file will have the name value pair, and this will have all the resources. Say for example, if you want to have icon, everything that needs to be placed in drawable folder, and this -sdpi means like that is supporting that component, that pixel component. Say for it has drawable -mdpi, then that means like it will support mdpi devices, and you can configure that. And then there is another folder called layout where you have the UI layout that you have, and you can have fragments as well inside this one. Values is where you have the strings.xml, everything. So this is the format how you have the resource folders. This is a R file, so this will be automatically generated based on your resources, and that will be added as an hex code here. So you will be referring in your layout the IDs using this this value only in your Java file. say for example you want to refer to the hello string, then you will have a component created like this, and then you have the value set like this. So these are all the life cycle of an activity. First it gets created, and then it gets started, and then once it gets out of user starts interaction, it's called resume. And then pause is like user does not do anything, it pauses. And stop is like callback, it's called when the activity is no longer visible. Destroy is like when activity is destroyed by the system. Restart is like when the activity restart after stopping it. So these are all the service options and the life cycle. So first it's started, so you just start the service, and then bound, you can bind the service, the current service, to other application, etc. Broadcast. So broadcast is something like you want to broadcast some, say for example you are connecting your USB drive power cord, and it has to display a message saying like the power cord connected. So that kind of message you can do using a receivers. So this is how you implement the receiver, like you extend broadcast receivers, and then you add the receiver name, and then the filters here. The filter may, for example, if you want to do a battery change, then you'll add it here. And then you can have a custom intent saying like you can invoke a intent, and then you can say send broadcast for that particular intent that you have. Content provider is something like you want to interact with the UI user using the content that you want to store locally and then retrieve locally. So this is how you use content providers. Fragment is something like within an activity you will have two fragments. Say for example you want a tab, and then it want to show a different UI element, then you will use fragments. So this is the life cycle of fragments. Intent is something like you want to call another application or service. For example, you want to open a camera from your application, and then you want to dial a number. So for those things you will use intents. So layout is something like you have linear layout. So this is just to arrange your components in your UI. This is how you use layouts. So you want to have you have to have that in your XML file, the layout file, and then you use it like this using the layout dot active main. And these are all different types of layouts. UI control means like you have different UI controls like button, text view, toggle button, checkbox, etc. Event listener is like when a click happened and then focus change, key pressed, etc. etc. Styles is something like where you add styles to the UI element, that is like using a CSS or some kind of styles you will be using. So for those things you will use styles. Custom component, you can have your custom component implemented and then you can use it within your application. So this is how you develop the custom component. So after this you just need to have all Java logic to build your Android application. So if you are very specific about doing content sharing, multimedia, and then other specific tasks, then you need to refer these links to go there and get the snippets and then learn more. Thank you.